In the silent, unforgiving vacuum of space, the new great power competition unfolds. This is the 21st century strategic high ground, a domain where economic futures are forged and geopolitical destinies are decided. Satellites, the unseen arbiters of global finance, communication, and military intelligence, chart their silent courses, representing trillions of dollars in infrastructure and incalculable strategic value. In this high-stakes theater of operations, there is no margin for error. A single miscalculation, a moment of human frailty, can cascade into a catastrophic failure with consequences that ripple across the globe. To operate in this environment, to safeguard these critical assets and push the boundaries of national ambition, requires a new breed of human operator. These are individuals forged in a crucible of immense physical pressure and psychological stress, honed to a razor's edge of performance. They are the astronauts. These incredible individuals possess the almost unimaginable fortitude to be strapped into capsules perched atop millions of pounds of explosive fuel, willingly leaving behind the only home humanity has ever known. They are propelled into a world devoid of familiar comforts, where they eat, sleep, and work while orbiting the Earth at speeds exceeding 17,000 miles per hour. In this realm, the fundamental laws of life on Earth are suspended. It is an environment that warps the human body in profound and often little understood ways, testing the mind to its breaking point and fundamentally altering their perception of the world and their place within it. The path to earning a place among this elite cadre is not a journey of scientific adventure alone. It is a grueling ordeal, a series of trials designed to systematically deconstruct and rebuild a person until they are capable of functioning flawlessly in the most hostile environment ever faced by mankind. The overall mood, not by soaring into the heavens, but by descending into the crushing depths of the Earth. One of the closest terrestrial analogs to the strange, disorienting sensation of floating in microgravity is found underwater. Before they ever taste the freedom of orbit, astronaut candidates spend hundreds, even thousands of hours submerged in colossal pools, their bodies encased in weighted suits meticulously calibrated to achieve neutral buoyancy, a delicate state where they neither sink nor float. Here, enveloped by the immense pressure and resistance of the water, they learn the new language of movement in a three-dimensional space. Every motion must be slow, deliberate, and precise, a painstaking choreography that retrains years of instinct honed by gravity. While the drag of water is an imperfect substitute for the frictionless void of space, it is remarkably effective at simulating the physical challenge of complex spacewalks, the difficulty of manipulating bulky tools, and the profound disorientation of working without a conventional sense of up or down. The epicenter of this aquatic proving ground is NASA's Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory in Houston, Texas, a cathedral of engineering and human endurance. To call it a pool is a profound understatement. It is a cavernous inland sea, longer than a football field and so deep that a diver can descend 40 feet without reaching the bottom. Submerged within its depths rests a full-scale, one-to-one replica of the International Space Station, a ghostly metallic skeleton complete with every critical module, handrail, and piece of external equipment. This is not a simulation for orientation, it is a high-fidelity rehearsal for survival. Encased in their cumbersome suits, astronauts execute spacewalks that can last up to 6 grueling hours at a time, their every move monitored by a dedicated team of support divers who make minute adjustments to their buoyancy with small weights and foam blocks. Each task, no matter how trivial it may seem on Earth, turning a single bolt, closing a hatch, or securing a cable is rehearsed with obsessive precision, timed, critiqued, and repeated until it becomes muscle memory. This vast body of water is both a classroom and a coliseum, the stage where the skills that will mean the difference between life and death in orbit are painstakingly and patiently forged. The immense economic investment in such a facility underscores a critical geopolitical reality. The nations that can best prepare their operators for the rigors of extravehicular activity will hold a decisive advantage in the construction, maintenance, and control of critical space-based infrastructure. Yet mastering the external environment is only half the battle. The first and perhaps most insidious enemy an astronaut must conquer is their own body. On Earth, gravity is a constant, invisible force, pulling blood and other bodily fluids down toward our feet. The moment an astronaut enters orbit, this lifelong anchor vanishes. The result is a violent internal rebellion as fluids shift upward, flooding the chest, head, and face. To prepare their bodies for this physiological shock, astronauts are subjected to long, uncomfortable sessions on Earth, where they are strapped to tilting tables, positioned head down to force their circulatory systems to adapt. The experience is deeply unpleasant. Sinuses become painfully clogged, faces swell into puffy, almost unrecognizable masks, and vision can blur as pressure builds behind the eyes. The overall mood of space travel captivates the public imagination. The reality for an astronaut is a career spent in obsessive preparation for catastrophic failure. Every system is redundant, every procedure is checked, but the unforgiving physics of atmospheric re-entry and the vast, unpredictable wilderness of Earth demand that astronauts prepare for the moment when everything goes wrong. They must be ready for an emergency landing that strands them hundreds or even thousands of miles off course, transforming them from celestial explorers into desperate survivors in an instant. Imagine the violent return, a capsule streaking through the atmosphere, only to touch down not in a designated recovery zone, but in the heart of a frozen Siberian forest, a desolate desert, or a remote, unforgiving ocean. In these scenarios, the mission is not over. A new, more primal mission has just begun: survival. To this end, every astronaut is subjected to brutal wilderness training in some of the most inhospitable environments on the planet. This is not a recreational camping trip, it is a high-stakes simulation of utter abandonment. They learn to construct emergency shelters using nothing but capsule debris and whatever natural materials are at hand. They are trained to hunt, to fish, and to secure a source of water, all while potentially injured and encumbered by their bulky flight suits. The scenarios are drawn from the annals of space history and projected future risks. Russian cosmonauts, with the vast expanse of Siberia as a potential landing zone, have historically practiced skiing through deep snow and using their parachutes as material for life-saving insulation. Their American counterparts have been deployed into swamps, jungles, and scorching deserts, forced to execute survival protocols under conditions of extreme heat and humidity. The strategic subtext is stark and unavoidable. In the event of an off-course landing in a geopolitically sensitive or hostile territory, the ability of an astronaut to survive until a complex and politically delicate rescue can be mounted is a matter of national security. The astronaut is not just a scientist, they are a strategic asset that must be protected or, if necessary, self-preserved. This focus on survival extends beyond our own world. As nations set their sights on the Moon and Mars, astronauts are now training not just to survive Earth, but to become proficient explorers on alien landscapes. The barren, windswept deserts of Earth, with their ochre dust and extreme temperatures, serve as high-fidelity stand-ins for the surface of Mars. Here, crews conduct simulated long-duration missions, testing rovers, deploying scientific instruments, and practicing geological survey techniques. Deeper still, they venture into the planet's rugged, labyrinthine cave systems, dark, twisting, and psychologically taxing environments that offer a chilling preview of what it might feel like to explore beneath the lunar surface. The European Space Agency's CAVES program is a prime example of this extreme preparation, sending multinational astronaut crews underground for weeks at a time to simulate the profound isolation and physical challenges of planetary exploration. In this subterranean world, they must map unknown terrain, manage dwindling resources, and maintain crew cohesion under the constant threat of equipment failure and psychological strain. These earthly training grounds are more than geological analogies. They are crucibles for developing the mindset of a true interplanetary explorer, reminding us that long before the first human footprint is planted in the red dust of Mars, its echoes will have been walked 1,000 times here at home. Before an astronaut can master the void, they must first endure its violent introduction. The quickest, most accessible, and notoriously nauseating way to experience weightlessness is through parabolic flights, colloquially known as the vomit comet. These are specially modified aircraft that fly in a gut-wrenching roller coaster trajectory. The plane climbs at a steep 45-degree angle, pushing passengers into their seats with a force of nearly 2 Gs, and then noses over into a controlled freefall. For about 20 to 25 seconds, everything and everyone inside becomes weightless, floating in a state of controlled chaos. This cycle is repeated dozens of times in a single flight, creating a disorienting, exhilarating, and often stomach-churning experience. Many first-timers emerge pale, sweating, and physically ill, a testament to the body's violent protest against the loss of gravity. But the training is invaluable. In these fleeting pockets of zero gravity, astronauts get their first raw taste of the physics of orbit. They practice handling tools that float away, controlling their own body movements without pushing off too hard, and even rehearsing delicate medical procedures on dummies. It is a brutal but effective method of building tolerance and skill, a rite of passage that bridges the gap between the grounded world and the free-floating one that awaits them. The overall mood of contact with space is complemented by a far more controlled and infinitely repeatable training environment: virtual reality. Before they ever don a multi-million-dollar spacesuit, astronauts have already performed their assigned spacewalks countless times in the digital realm. Wearing sophisticated VR headsets and haptic feedback controllers, they navigate a perfect digital twin of the International Space Station, the star-strewn void of space rendered in breathtaking detail around them. These simulations are not games. They are meticulously programmed to recreate the slow, deliberate pace of an actual spacewalk, even mimicking the realistic physical resistance of turning a bolt or pulling oneself along a handrail. In this virtual space, mistakes are safe, but their consequences are graphically demonstrated. A fumbled tool drifts away into the infinite darkness. A misjudged maneuver leads to a collision with fragile, mission-critical equipment. VR allows for the endless rehearsal of both routine procedures and rare catastrophic emergencies, building the deep muscle memory essential for flawless execution when lives are on the line. Just as a fighter pilot spends thousands of hours in a flight simulator, the modern astronaut uses this digital universe to map the alien environment of orbit into their very nervous system, ensuring that by the time they step out of the airlock for the first time, the terrifying and unfamiliar already feels routine. The path to orbit is not a gentle ascent. It is a controlled act of violence. To survive it, the human body must be systematically hardened, conditioned to withstand forces that would incapacitate or kill an ordinary person. Before an astronaut ever feels the thunder of a real rocket, they are introduced to its crushing power in the cockpit of a high-performance military jet. These machines are instruments of extreme stress, capable of executing maneuvers that subject the pilot to multiple Gs, gravitational forces that pin the body into its seat with monstrous weight. Under this strain, limbs become unbearably heavy, feeling as if they are made of lead. The simple act of lifting a hand to a switch requires a supreme act of will. The heart struggles to pump blood upward, and as the G-forces mount, vision begins to fade at the edges, tunneling into a gray haze as the brain is starved of oxygen. Astronauts are not merely passengers on these brutal flights. They are active participants, training to fight back against their own physiology. They master specialized breathing techniques and learn to tense their muscles in a precise rhythm, a physically grueling maneuver designed to keep blood flowing to the brain and stave off a G-induced loss of consciousness. They must remain lucid, focused, and functional while their bodies are screaming for relief. This is not glamorous or elegant training. It is a dizzying, exhausting, and punishing ordeal designed to prepare them for the violent 8-minute ride that will punch them through the atmosphere and into the calm of orbit. It is the first visceral taste of the raw power required to break the bonds of Earth. Yet, life aboard the International Space Station is not defined by brute force alone, but by a complex and often fragile geopolitical partnership. This reality imposes another equally demanding training requirement. Every NASA astronaut, regardless of their specialization, must become proficient and often fluent in Russian. For decades, the station's operational manuals, safety procedures, and critical systems have been documented in both English and Russian. Following the retirement of the Space Shuttle in 2011, the only reliable vehicle for transporting crews to and from the station was the Russian Soyuz spacecraft, a fact that created a profound strategic dependency for the United States and its international partners. For nearly a decade, every American astronaut flew to their own multi-billion-dollar station aboard a Russian rocket, launched from a Russian spaceport. This reliance on the Soyuz, with its exclusively Russian controls and protocols, meant that language proficiency was not a courtesy, but a matter of survival. Mastering the complex technical vocabulary for navigation, life support, and emergency systems, all while undergoing a battery of other training, demands immense dedication. But the geopolitical implications ran deeper. This arrangement, born from a post-Cold War spirit of cooperation, slowly evolved into a source of significant political leverage for Moscow. The recent emergence of American commercial crew vehicles like SpaceX's Dragon is a direct and deliberate strategic countermove, an expensive and technologically ambitious effort to break this dependency and restore independent American access to space. For the astronauts living and working together in orbit, language is the bridge that transcends these terrestrial rivalries, but it is also a constant, subtle reminder of the intricate dance of power and interdependence that defines the final frontier. This high-minded world of geopolitics and advanced engineering collides with a far more humbling reality back in the training centers. For all the advanced science they must master, one of an astronaut's most critical skills is decidedly low-tech, fixing a broken toilet. In the microgravity environment of the space station, waste management is a complex and potentially hazardous engineering challenge. The system relies on precisely controlled airflow and suction, and if it fails, the confined habitat can quickly become unsanitary and unlivable. Astronauts, therefore, receive extensive training in orbital plumbing. They learn to disassemble pumps, replace contaminated hoses, and troubleshoot complex failures, often with improvised tools in cramped, awkward spaces. The task is a great equalizer. When the toilet breaks 250 miles above Earth, it does not matter who has the PhD in astrophysics. What matters is who can calmly follow the checklist and get the system running again. Astronauts often joke about this part of their training, but they take it with the utmost seriousness. It is a stark lesson in the realities of life in a closed-loop system. A critical dress rehearsal for future long-duration missions to Mars, where there will be no resupply ships to deliver spare parts and no escape from the consequences of a critical system's failure. This relentless preparation, physical, political, and practical, all culminates in the final moments before launch. Strapped into a seat that has been custom molded to the exact contours of their body to distribute the violent forces ahead, the astronaut becomes acutely aware of a terrifying paradox. To reach the serene beauty of orbit, they must first entrust their life to a controlled explosion of unimaginable power. Beneath them are towering tanks containing millions of pounds of volatile, cryogenically chilled fuel waiting to be unleashed. The engineering is precise, the mathematics flawless, yet there is no escaping the knowledge that they are perched atop humanity's most powerful firework. When the engines ignite, the violence is absolute. A force that shakes bones and rattles teeth as the entire spacecraft trembles. As the rocket claws its way upward, they will endure a force of 3 times Earth's gravity, pinning them to their seats as their bodies feel 3 times their normal weight. And for this final, brutal journey, crammed shoulder to shoulder in a capsule smaller than a car, another layer of glamour is stripped away. With no room to move and a journey that can last hours, they wear high-tech absorbent garments, diapers. It is the final humbling act, a surrender to basic biology, before they are hurled into the heavens. The controlled violence of a rocket launch is a testament to humanity's ability to harness cataclysmic power. At the apex of this engineering stands a machine that, even half a century after its final flight, remains the undisputed titan of propulsion, the Saturn V. Conceived during the white heat of the Cold War space race, the Saturn V was not merely a rocket. It was a declaration of national will, a 36-story colossus of fire and steel that consumed a staggering percentage of the American federal budget. Weighing over 6 million pounds, its first-stage engines generated an almost incomprehensible 34 million newtons of thrust, a force so immense that its acoustic shockwave could be felt in the chests of observers miles away, shaking buildings and ripping piles from nearby roofs. For the Apollo astronauts strapped calmly into their command module, the experience was akin to harnessing a thunderbolt. Nothing built since, not the elegant space shuttle nor the efficient modern rockets of today, has matched the sheer brute force audacity of the Saturn V. It was a machine born of a unique geopolitical imperative: to project power beyond the atmosphere and demonstrate technological supremacy on the grandest possible stage, the lunar surface. To break free from Earth's gravity is one challenge, to remain aloft is another entirely. This is achieved not through constant propulsion, but through breathtaking speed. To maintain a stable orbit, a spacecraft must achieve a velocity of over 17,000 miles per hour. It is a speed so immense that it allows a vessel to cross the continental United States in under 10 minutes, circling the entire planet in a mere 90 minutes. At this velocity, gravity's relentless pull is not defeated but perfectly counterbalanced, transforming the spacecraft's trajectory into a state of perpetual, high-speed falling around the curve of the Earth. From within the cabin, there is no conventional sensation of speed, only a sudden, jarring transition from the crushing G-forces of launch to the serene, floating drift of orbit. Yet this incredible velocity introduces a new and persistent danger. In low Earth orbit, even a minuscule fleck of paint from a defunct satellite becomes a hypervelocity projectile, carrying the kinetic energy of a bullet. The orbital environment is a shooting gallery of man-made debris, a strategic domain where a catastrophic collision is an ever-present risk, demanding constant tracking and maneuvering to protect priceless assets and human lives. Once this state of perpetual freefall is achieved, the astronaut's body and mind must begin one of the most profound adaptations imaginable. On Earth, gravity is the ultimate arbiter of direction, an omnipresent force that dictates up from down. In orbit, this fundamental law of existence vanishes. Astronauts quickly discover that orientation is entirely relative. A crewmate might be seen working on a laptop strapped to what was once the ceiling, while another floats upside down nearby, eating a meal. The brain, deprived of its lifelong gravitational cues from the inner ear, initially rebels, often inducing the nausea and vertigo of space adaptation syndrome. But over days, a remarkable neuroplasticity takes hold. The brain rewires itself, learning to accept a reality where any direction is equally valid. On the space station, the designations of floor and ceiling exist only as a matter of convention, marked by lighting and equipment layouts for the sake of habit. This adaptation is a testament to the flexibility of the human mind, but it also creates a playful yet deeply alien environment where perspective itself becomes fluid, a constant reminder that the invisible anchors of Earth have been left far behind. This serene state of floating, however, is periodically interrupted by moments of controlled violence. During critical maneuvers such as docking with another spacecraft or re-entry, astronauts must be securely strapped into their seats. The slightest unexpected jolt or vibration could send a free-floating crew member slamming into a bulkhead, causing serious injury. In the older, more rudimentary spacecraft, the turbulence of re-entry was compared to being thrown around inside a washing machine. The return to Earth is arguably the most perilous phase of any mission. To slow down from 17,000 miles per hour, the capsule must plow through the upper atmosphere, using friction as a brake. This process generates heat so intense that the air around the spacecraft ionizes into a glowing plasma, with temperatures soaring to levels hotter than the surface of the sun. The only thing standing between the astronauts and instantaneous incineration is an ablative heat shield, a remarkable piece of material science designed to char, melt, and peel away, carrying the deadly heat with it. For several minutes, cocooned inside their plunging capsule, the crew is enveloped in a fireball, a roaring inferno that blacks out all radio communication, their survival depending entirely on the integrity of the shield beneath them. Even the initial ascent is not without its own visceral human frailties. The overwhelming combination of extreme G-forces, intense vibrations, and overwhelming adrenaline can overwhelm even the most seasoned astronaut. In the stark reality of spaceflight, some have been struck by sudden, violent nausea, vomiting inside the claustrophobic confines of their sealed helmets. It is a terrifying and life-threatening scenario. With no way to remove the helmet, the vomit can obscure vision, clog critical breathing vents, and create a genuine choking hazard. While absorbent pads and anti-nausea medication are standard issue, the body remains unpredictable. This stark reality serves as a powerful reminder that astronauts are not infallible machines. They are profoundly human, carrying their biological vulnerabilities into one of the most technologically advanced and unforgiving journeys ever conceived. Their ability to remain calm and functional while facing such a primal crisis is perhaps the ultimate testament to their training. After surviving this gauntlet, they enter a world where the very rhythm of life is shattered. Orbiting the Earth every 90 minutes, they witness a sunrise and a sunset every 45 minutes. In a single 24-hour period, they experience this cycle 16 times, a surreal blurring of day and night that fundamentally reshapes their perception of time itself. Upon entering orbit, the violence of the launch gives way to a silent, insidious challenge: the complete reinvention of daily life. On the International Space Station, a marvel of engineering and a testament to international cooperation, gravity's constant grounding force is gone. In its place is a world of floating, where every object, including the astronauts themselves, drifts weightlessly until acted upon by another force. Within this delicate artificial biosphere, the simplest routines of human existence, eating, sleeping, working, must be deconstructed and meticulously re-engineered for a world governed by a new set of physical rules. Notebooks, tools, and personal items must be tethered or secured with Velcro and magnets, lest they float away into a vent or behind a complex instrument panel, lost forever. Workstations are equipped with footholds and handrails, not for support, but to anchor an astronaut in place while they exert the force needed to use a computer or turn a wrench. Life in orbit is a continuous, mentally taxing exercise in three-dimensional awareness, a constant negotiation with an environment that is both liberatingly graceful and dangerously chaotic. Nowhere is this reinvention more critical than in the consumption of food. In the microgravity environment, a single floating crumb is not an annoyance, it is a clear and present danger. It can be inhaled by a crewmate, posing a respiratory hazard, or it can drift into a sensitive piece of electronics, causing a short circuit that could cascade into a life-threatening system failure. This reality has given rise to an entirely new field of culinary engineering, where the primary design constraint is safety. All food sent into orbit must be cohesive. Meals are typically moist, sticky, or compressed into bite-sized portions to prevent fragmentation. Freeze-dried dishes, the cornerstone of space catering, are rehydrated with water injected directly into sealed pouches, transforming powders into stews and casseroles that can be eaten with a spoon without risk of scattering. This necessity led to one of the most famous dietary prohibitions in spaceflight history. Bread is banned. The crumbs it inevitably produces deemed an unacceptable risk. In its place, a simple terrestrial staple has become an icon of space cuisine: the tortilla. Soft, flexible, and virtually crumb-free, the tortilla is the perfect orbital food delivery system. It can be wrapped around fillings, folded into pockets, or used as a base for makeshift pizzas, providing a versatile and satisfying meal option. The taco night tradition aboard the ISS is more than a novelty. It is a crucial morale-boosting event, a moment of shared community for a multinational crew far from home. The logistical and economic considerations underpinning space food are immense. With launch costs running into thousands of dollars per pound, every item must be shelf-stable for months or years and incredibly mass-efficient. The humble tortilla, therefore, is not just food. It is a piece of mission-critical hardware, selected for its safety, longevity, utility, and psychological benefit. It represents a perfect intersection of engineering, logistics, and human factors, a simple solution to a complex problem. The challenges of fluid dynamics and microgravity are even more counterintuitive. Without gravity, liquids do not pour. They cling to surfaces due to surface tension, forming unstable, oscillating blobs. A simple cup of coffee is an impossibility. To solve this, beverages are sealed in pouches and sipped through straws. While functional, the experience is a far cry from the comforting ritual of drinking from a mug on Earth. Astronauts, who often crave the alertness that caffeine provides during long and demanding work schedules, have made coffee a priority. This has driven significant research, leading to the development of special space cups that use fluid dynamics, specifically capillary action, to guide liquid to the rim, allowing an astronaut to sip in a more natural way. This wasn't a frivolous project. Mastering the behavior of fluids in space is critical for designing more efficient fuel and coolant systems for future spacecraft. The morning coffee ritual in orbit is a daily, hands-on experiment in fundamental physics. This strange new world also wages a subtle war on the senses. A common complaint among astronauts is that food tastes bland and uninteresting. This is a direct consequence of the upward fluid shift in the body. With their sinuses perpetually congested, an astronaut's sense of smell, which is responsible for the vast majority of what we perceive as flavor, is significantly diminished. The solution is an aggressive assault on the remaining taste buds: hot sauce. Spicy condiments, with their powerful, pungent kick, can cut through the blandness and deliver a jolt of flavor that astronauts crave. Bottles of Tabasco, sriracha, and other chili pastes are among the most requested items on supply missions. Even crew members who were mild eaters on Earth often become connoisseurs of spice in orbit. This phenomenon is more than a culinary quirk. It is a critical component of psychological well-being. Food fatigue is a documented risk on long-duration missions, leading to poor nutrition and low morale. A simple bottle of hot sauce becomes a tool for maintaining crew health and effectiveness, a small spark of sensory joy in a sterile and monotonous environment. This principle extends even to basic seasonings. The overall mood of life in space is a microcosm of life in space. Even the most mundane detail of human experience must be reimagined and re-engineered to ensure survival. Life in orbit is a paradox. The very state of weightlessness that defines the romance of space travel is also a relentless, invisible enemy waging a war of attrition against the human body. Deprived of the constant load-bearing stress of gravity, the body begins to cannibalize itself in a silent, systematic process of decay. Bones weaken, muscles shrink, and the cardiovascular system grows lazy. To simply survive, let alone remain operationally effective for months on end, an astronaut must become a dedicated warrior in a daily battle against their own biology. The primary theater of this war is the station's gym, where for 2 full hours every single day, they engage in a grueling exercise regimen that is not a choice, but a core mission-critical task. Failure to comply is not an option, as a physically degraded astronaut is a liability who cannot perform a physically demanding spacewalk or effectively respond to an in-flight emergency. The orbital gym is a masterpiece of specialized engineering, designed to function in a world without weight. Since conventional weightlifting is impossible, astronauts use the Advanced Resistive Exercise Device, or AIRD, a complex machine that uses vacuum cylinders to simulate the forces of lifting hundreds of pounds, allowing them to perform squats, deadlifts, and bench presses. To combat cardiovascular deconditioning, they run on a treadmill, but must be strapped down with a harness of bungee cords that pulls them onto the running surface, simulating body weight and providing the necessary impact to stimulate bone. They pedal on stationary bicycles that are simply anchored to a wall, floating in place as they exercise. The logistics of this are staggering. Each piece of equipment is a multi-million-dollar investment, meticulously engineered to be lightweight for launch, robust enough for years of daily use, and critically designed to dampen vibrations so that the force of an astronaut running on a treadmill does not disrupt the sensitive microgravity experiments being conducted elsewhere on the station. This daily ritual is as much as a psychological imperative as it is a physiological one. In the confined, monotonous environment of the station, the 2 hours of intense physical exertion provide a powerful sense of routine, control, and stress relief. It is a structured, disciplined fight, and winning that fight each day, feeling the burn of muscle exertion and the strain of lifting, fortifies the mind and builds the psychological resilience essential for enduring months of isolation. For long-duration missions to the Moon and Mars, which will last for years, mastering the science of mitigating physiological decay in flight is not just a goal, it is an absolute prerequisite. Without these countermeasures, a crew would arrive at Mars too weak to even walk on its surface, rendering the entire multi-trillion-dollar endeavor a failure. The first casualty in this biological war is the skeleton. On Earth, every step, every movement, every moment spent standing sends mechanical loads through our bones, signaling the body to maintain their density and strength. The overall mood, the body makes a starkly logical but dangerous calculation. The skeleton is no longer needed. Specialized cells called osteoclasts begin to aggressively break down bone tissue, releasing its minerals into the bloodstream. As a result, astronauts can lose up to 1% of their bone mass for every month they spend in space, a rate of decay comparable to what an elderly person with severe osteoporosis might experience over the course of an entire year. The hips, legs, and spine are the most profoundly affected, leaving astronauts vulnerable to debilitating fractures upon their return to a gravity-rich environment. Furthermore, the excess calcium leached from their bones floods the bloodstream, dramatically increasing the risk of developing excruciatingly painful kidney stones, a medical emergency that is difficult to treat on Earth and would be catastrophic in orbit. In this sense, the International Space Station has become the world's most unique laboratory for osteoporosis research. By studying the accelerated bone loss in healthy astronauts, scientists gain invaluable data that directly informs the treatment of millions of people on Earth suffering from age-related bone diseases, a clear return on investment for the immense cost of space exploration. Parallel to the silent dissolution of bone is the rapid wasting of muscle. Gravity is our constant personal trainer, forcing our muscles, particularly the large postural muscles in the legs, back, and neck, to work continuously just to hold us upright. When that trainer vanishes, atrophy begins within days. Without the intense daily resistance training provided by the ED, muscle fibers would weaken, endurance would plummet, and a profound fatigue would set in. Even with this rigorous regimen, astronauts return to Earth noticeably weaker, their muscle mass significantly reduced. Their first steps on solid ground are often clumsy and uncertain, not just because their balance is off, but because their legs, having not supported their own weight for months, feel alien and uncooperative. The physical rehabilitation process is arduous, taking weeks and sometimes months of dedicated physical therapy to rebuild what was lost. This recovery period is itself a rich source of scientific data, providing deep insights into muscle aging and recovery that benefit patients on Earth recovering from long periods of bed rest or suffering from degenerative muscle conditions. Space teaches a brutal and fundamental lesson. Strength is never permanent. It is a temporary state, earned through constant struggle. And in the unforgiving environment of orbit, that struggle is a daily requirement for survival. In the relentless 24/7 operational environment of the International Space Station, sleep is not a passive state of rest. It is another carefully managed and engineered aspect of survival. On Earth, gravity is a silent partner in our slumber, anchoring us to our beds. In orbit, an untethered astronaut would drift aimlessly through the cabin, posing a risk to both themselves and the station's delicate equipment. The solution is as pragmatic as it is strange. Each crew member has a personal sleeping bag, a narrow, cocoon-like enclosure that they strap to a wall, the ceiling, or any other available surface in their phone booth-sized private quarters. This act of anchoring oneself provides a crucial sense of place and security in a world devoid of conventional direction. It is a necessary ritual, the final checklist item before surrendering to consciousness in a realm where even sleep must be actively controlled. Once secured, the astronaut experiences a sensation of rest unlike anything possible on Earth. The overall mood of floating in their sleeping bags as being suspended inside a cloud, a state of soft, unanchored, and total release. On the ground, even in the deepest sleep, our muscles are in a constant state of low-level tension, making micro-adjustments against the pull of gravity. In space, this lifelong burden is lifted. Muscles can achieve a state of profound relaxation that is physically impossible within a gravity well. Arms often float gently upwards, curling into the air as if the sleeper were suspended in water. While many astronauts grow to find this the most comfortable and restorative rest they have ever experienced, the initial adaptation can be jarring. The absence of pressure, the lack of the familiar weight of blankets can feel deeply disorienting. And sleep researchers note that the quality of sleep can sometimes be less restorative, a critical concern when peak cognitive performance is a daily necessity. The study of astronaut sleep patterns is a major focus of space medicine, as ensuring effective rest is fundamental to mission success and long-term crew health. The mind, too, adapts and processes this new reality in fascinating ways. Unsurprisingly, the dreams of astronauts are often saturated with the physics of their new environment. Many report vivid dreams of flying, of soaring effortlessly, not just through the station's modules, but through the familiar skies of Earth, a clear reflection of their waking life spent drifting weightlessly. More unsettling, however, are the recurring dreams of falling, of plummeting endlessly through a void, only to awaken with a start and realize they are, in fact, still safely floating. Psychologists see this as the subconscious mind grappling with the loss of its most fundamental anchor, a form of neurological vertigo, as the brain processes a lifetime of gravitational instinct being rendered obsolete. These dreams are more than mere curiosities. They are valuable data points, offering a window into how the human psyche adapts to and is stressed by the most profound environmental shift a person can experience. The soundscape of sleep is also radically altered. Space itself is silent, but the International Space Station is not. It is filled with the constant ambient hum of life support machinery, the whir of ventilation fans, the thrum of coolant pumps, and the clicks of countless electronic systems. This mechanical orchestra is the perpetual heartbeat of the station, an audible confirmation that the fragile man-made biosphere is functioning correctly. Over time, this noise ceases to be a distraction and becomes the lullaby of orbit, a comforting rhythm that many astronauts come to associate with safety and security. However, this auditory monotony also represents a form of sensory deprivation. The rich, chaotic, and ever-changing soundscape of Earth, the rustle of wind in trees, the patter of rain on a window, the distant call of a bird, is gone, replaced by the sterile and unchanging drone of a machine. This constant hum is both a reassurance of life and an inescapable reminder of their confinement and isolation, a sound that confirms they are alive only because the machine allows them to be. Perhaps the most poignant insight into the astronauts' inner world comes from the content of their dreams. Far from Earth, with a diet consisting of freeze-dried, thermostabilized, and pre-packaged meals, the subconscious mind often rebels, conjuring vivid dreams of the foods they miss the most. A natural male narrator with a warm, friendly tone. The astronaut wakes with the phantom taste of a crisp, fresh apple or the memory of a sizzling steak, only to face another meal squeezed from a pouch. These dreams are not merely about hunger. They are a manifestation of a deep-seated homesickness for the sensory richness of Earth. A dream of fresh bread is not just about the food itself, but about the entire ecosystem of comfort it represents. The warmth of a kitchen, the social bond of sharing a meal with family, the simple pleasure of choice. In the sterile, controlled, and isolated environment of the station, the mind holds fast to Earth's simplest and most profound pleasures. These cravings, bubbling up from the subconscious, are a powerful reminder that no matter how far humanity travels from its homeworld, the fundamental needs of the human spirit, for comfort, for connection, and for the authentic taste of home, travel with it. The human body is an exquisite machine, honed over millions of years of evolution to function in perfect harmony with the gravitational pull of Earth. When that fundamental force is stripped away, the body does not simply adapt. It begins to transform in ways that are both wondrous and deeply alarming. One of the most striking and immediate changes is that astronauts begin to grow taller. Without the constant downward compression on the spine, the soft discs between the vertebrae expand, allowing the spinal column to elongate. Within days of arriving in orbit, an astronaut can gain as much as 2 inches in height. While this may sound like a novel benefit, it is often a source of significant discomfort. The unnatural stretching can lead to persistent back pain as muscles and ligaments are pulled into new, stressful alignments. Furthermore, this elongation is a serious biomechanical problem. A natural male narrator with a warm, friendly tone. Fluid and easy to follow, like a light science podcast. Keep your voice clear and coherent with a gentle intonation that is both intelligent and soothing. Use pauses when necessary. The overall mood should be relaxed, engaging, and comfortable, perfect for bedtime reading and space narration. The tempo should be around 0.80. Highly customized equipment, from the lining of a spacesuit to the molded seats of a re-entry capsule, are tailored to an astronaut's precise Earthbound measurements. A sudden increase in height can render this life-saving equipment ill-fitting and potentially less effective, a clear illustration that the body is not evolving for space, but is being actively distorted by it. This spinal stretching is a visible symptom of a much larger systemic upheaval, the Great Fluid Shift. On Earth, gravity relentlessly pulls blood and other bodily fluids towards our legs and feet. In orbit, this pull vanishes, and the body's fluids immediately redistribute, surging upwards into the torso, neck, and head. This internal migration has immediate and obvious external consequences. Faces become round and puffy, a well-documented phenomenon jokingly referred to as moon face. Sinuses swell and clog, leaving astronauts with the perpetual sensation of having a bad head cold, a stuffy-nosed feeling that can last for the entire duration of their mission. This is not merely an inconvenience. This constant congestion is the direct cause of the dulled senses of smell and taste discussed earlier, a condition which can negatively impact an astronaut's appetite, nutrition, and overall morale. More alarmingly, this fluid shift significantly increases the pressure inside the skull, a condition that medical researchers now believe is the root cause of one of the most serious long-term health risks of spaceflight. For years, NASA doctors have documented a disturbing trend. A significant percentage of astronauts returning from long-duration missions experience changes to their vision, some of which appear to be permanent. The condition, now identified as Spaceflight-Associated Neuroocular Syndrome, or SANS, is a direct threat to the future of human interplanetary exploration. The overall mood of intracranial pressure physically deforms the eyeball, pressing on the back of the eye and flattening its shape. It can cause swelling of the optic nerve and folds in the retina. The result is a shift in vision, typically causing farsightedness, requiring astronauts with previously perfect eyesight to need glasses upon their return to Earth. The strategic implication of this is profound. An astronaut with degraded vision is an operational liability. Clear eyesight is non-negotiable for reading critical instrument displays, piloting a spacecraft during a dynamic maneuver, or performing a delicate, complex repair during a spacewalk. SANS is therefore not just a medical curiosity, it is a potential showstopper for a multi-year mission to Mars. As a result, an intense research effort is underway to develop countermeasures, including experimental devices that encase the lower body in negative pressure to try and draw the fluids back down into the legs, mimicking the effects of gravity. Solving the SANS problem is a mission-critical gateway that will determine whether humanity remains in low Earth orbit or truly ventures out into the solar system. The body's central engine, the heart, also undergoes a startling transformation. The heart is a muscle, and like any muscle, it adapts to its workload. On Earth, it fights a constant uphill battle against gravity to pump blood to the brain. In space, that battle is over. With fluids already pooled in the upper body, the heart has a much easier job. In response to this reduced demand, it begins to remodel itself. Medical imaging has shown that the heart muscle itself can lose mass, and that the organ gradually becomes less elongated and more spherical in shape. The heart remains capable of sustaining an astronaut in the low-demand environment of orbit. This cardiovascular deconditioning is a significant danger upon returning home. The weakened muscle can struggle to cope with the sudden reintroduction of gravity, leading to a condition known as orthostatic intolerance, which causes dizziness, lightheadedness, and even fainting when an astronaut tries to stand. This is the primary reason for the aggressive 2-hour daily exercise regimen. The high-intensity aerobic and resistance workouts are a direct and vital countermeasure, artificially stressing the heart to force it to maintain the strength it will desperately need to function under the weight of gravity again. The research gleaned from studying this deconditioning in healthy astronauts provides invaluable insights for cardiac patients on Earth, demonstrating how the extreme laboratory of space continues to yield direct benefits for terrestrial medicine. Beyond the large-scale transformations of bone and muscle, the space environment wages a more subtle and insidious campaign against the body's internal systems. The finely tuned choreography of cellular processes perfected on Earth begins to falter. The simple act of healing, for instance, changes in orbit. Experiments have shown that the process can be slower and less predictable. Blood clotting may behave irregularly, and the very immune cells responsible for fighting infection and repairing tissue may not respond with their usual efficiency. This presents a critical operational risk for long-duration missions. A minor cut or abrasion, a trivial injury on the ground, could become a persistent, non-healing wound in space, creating a potential vector for serious infection. This threat is magnified by the erratic behavior of the immune system itself. Under the combined stressors of microgravity, radiation, and confinement, immunity can become dangerously unpredictable. For some astronauts, it weakens, allowing dormant viruses harbored in their own bodies, such as chickenpox or herpes, to reactivate and cause illness. For others, the system becomes overactive, leading to increased inflammation and other aggressive responses. On a multi-year journey to Mars, a viral outbreak within the small, isolated crew would be a mission-catastrophic event. Consequently, astronauts receive advanced medical training, and the ISS serves as a vital laboratory for understanding how to protect the human immune system when it is cut off from its terrestrial cradle. The very fluid that sustains life, our blood, also undergoes a troubling transformation. Many astronauts develop a condition known as space anemia, characterized by a significant drop in the volume of red blood cells. In microgravity, the body begins to destroy these oxygen-carrying cells at a much higher rate than normal, while the production of new cells in the bone marrow struggles to keep pace. The direct consequence is an increased susceptibility to fatigue and weakness. This is not merely a matter of comfort, it is a direct threat to crew performance. An anemic astronaut will have lower physical endurance for a strenuous spacewalk and may exhibit reduced cognitive function during a high-stress emergency. As with other space-induced ailments, the study of this phenomenon yields direct benefits on Earth, providing a unique model for understanding anemia in patients with chronic kidney disease and other conditions. For the astronaut, however, it is another front in the constant battle to maintain peak physical condition against an environment that seems intent on breaking them down, one cell at a time. Perhaps the strangest and most unsettling physiological phenomenon is one that astronauts can actually see. In the complete darkness of their sleep quarters, with their eyes closed, they report seeing inexplicable flashes of light. The overall mood, these are streaks, sparks, or starbursts, like tiny, silent fireworks detonating inside their own heads. This is not a hallucination. It is the visible evidence of the astronaut's body being bombarded by the invisible assault of cosmic radiation. Outside the protective bubble of Earth's atmosphere and magnetic field, space is saturated with high-energy particles, galactic cosmic rays, and solar radiation that travel at nearly the speed of light. When one of these particles passes through the astronaut's head and strikes the retina or optic nerve, it triggers the nerve to fire, creating the phantom illusion of light. While initially startling, astronauts come to accept these cosmic light shows as a simple fact of life in orbit. However, these flashes are a constant, visceral reminder of a far greater danger. The real threat is not the light itself, but the cumulative dose of radiation that their bodies are absorbing. This exposure carries significant long-term health risks, including a higher probability of developing cancer and cataracts. For future missions to Mars, which will take crews far beyond the Earth's protective magnetosphere for years at a time, radiation poses one of the single greatest threats to survival. The light flashes in an astronaut's eye are the ghost-like harbingers of this deadly, inescapable environmental hazard. The body's internal senses are also thrown into chaos. Our sense of balance is governed by the inner ear, a delicate system of fluid-filled canals that relies on gravity to determine our orientation. In orbit, this system becomes utterly confused. The signals it sends to the brain no longer match the information coming from the eyes, leading to a debilitating condition known as space adaptation syndrome, a severe form of motion sickness. In their first few days in orbit, many astronauts are afflicted with dizziness, nausea, and disorientation, turning simple tasks like reading a checklist into a monumental struggle. It is a profound irony of spaceflight that individuals who have been trained to withstand the 9G violence of a fighter jet can be completely undone by the gentle, silent embrace of weightlessness. Even the expression of human emotion is physically altered by the environment. Crying in space is a strange and uncomfortable experience. Without gravity to pull them downward, tears do not roll down the cheeks. Instead, they well up in the eyes, clinging to the eyeball and skin due to surface tension, forming a stinging, gelatinous blob of salty liquid. This floating globule of sadness will not fall, and an astronaut must physically wipe it away. It is a small, peculiar detail, but one that serves as a powerful metaphor for life in orbit. In this alien realm, even the most fundamental human release, the act of weeping, is constrained and warped by the laws of physics. It is a poignant illustration of the profound challenge of remaining fully human in a place that was never meant for human life. To step outside the protected confines of a spacecraft is to enter the most hostile environment known to humanity. It is a perfect vacuum, a realm of lethal radiation and unimaginable temperature extremes. To survive in this void, even for a few seconds, an astronaut must be encased in a fortress of engineering, a personal, man-shaped spacecraft known as the Extravehicular Activity, or EVA, suit. To call this a suit is a misnomer. It is a complete, independent life support system and one of the most complex machines ever created. The cost of a single modern spacesuit, reflecting decades of research, development, and bespoke manufacturing, is estimated to be in the tens of millions of dollars. This staggering price tag is a direct measure of its function: to create a tiny, mobile bubble of Earth's environment and wrap it around a fragile human body, standing as the only barrier between that body and instantaneous, violent death. Each suit is a marvel of material science, composed of multiple specialized layers. An inner liquid cooling and ventilation garment, laced with a network of fine tubes, circulates chilled water to draw away the intense body heat generated by physical exertion. Above this lies a pressurized bladder that contains a pure oxygen atmosphere, preventing the astronaut's bodily fluids from boiling in the vacuum. This is surrounded by layers of Kevlar and other ballistic materials to protect against tears and punctures from micrometeoroids, tiny grains of sand-like debris traveling at speeds many times faster than a bullet. The outermost layers provide thermal insulation and reflect the brutal, unfiltered intensity of direct sunlight. The helmet's visor is coated with a microscopically thin layer of pure gold, not for decoration, but because it is an exceptionally efficient material for reflecting harmful solar radiation while still allowing the astronaut to see. Every component, from the oxygen tanks and carbon dioxide scrubbers in the backpack to the integrated communication systems, works in concert to sustain a single human life in an environment where none should exist. The ability to design, build, and maintain these complex systems is a critical strategic capability, representing a high-tech industrial base that is essential for any nation with serious ambitions for human space exploration. Of all the suit's components, none presents a greater engineering challenge than the gloves. They are the nexus of an impossible compromise. They must be robust enough to protect the hands from the vacuum and extreme temperatures, yet flexible enough to allow an astronaut to perform delicate repair work, grasping tiny tools and turning small fasteners. The pressurized fabric makes them inherently stiff, turning the simple act of closing a hand into an exhausting battle against the suit itself. This constant strain takes a brutal physical toll. After a spacewalk lasting upwards of 8 hours, an astronaut's hands are often left aching, swollen, and bruised. The constant pressure and friction inside the glove's hard-shelled fingertips can be so severe that it damages the nail beds, sometimes causing an astronaut's fingernails to lift, break, or fall off entirely. This visceral, painful detail underscores the raw physical sacrifice required for extravehicular work. It is a stark reminder that even within a multi-million-dollar technological cocoon, the human body is being pushed beyond its natural limits. The physical challenge is compounded by the very nature of the suit's life support system. To survive, the suit must be inflated with a breathable atmosphere, which causes it to become rigid, like a personal balloon. Every movement, bending an elbow, turning at the waist, reaching for a handhold, requires fighting against this constant, unyielding pressure. Astronauts describe the experience not as floating, but as a continuous, strenuous workout, as if they are wrestling with the very machine that is keeping them alive. The reason for this rigidity is a matter of pure physics. The internal pressure is what counteracts the external vacuum. Without it, the astronaut would die in seconds. Therefore, the very feature that ensures their survival is also the source of their profound exhaustion. Given the immense dangers, multiple layers of safety and redundancy are built into every spacewalk. The most terrifying scenario for an astronaut is becoming untethered and drifting away into the infinite void. As a last line of defense, they wear a small nitrogen-propelled jetpack called the SAFER, Simplified Aid for EVA Rescue. Controlled by a small joystick, this device can fire gentle bursts of gas, allowing a tumbling, untethered astronaut to stabilize their orientation and propel themselves back to the safety of the station. Though rarely used, the SAFER is a vital psychological and practical safety net. Yet, for all the backups, one threat remains absolute: a significant tear or puncture in the suit. This would result in catastrophic decompression, with the air rushing out in seconds, leading to an almost immediate loss of consciousness and death. This ever-present danger dictates the slow, deliberate, and methodical pace of every spacewalk. It is a constant, quiet reminder of the fragility of life, suspended by a thread of engineering in the most unforgiving ocean imaginable. To emerge from the airlock is to be born into a new universe. Encased in their personal spacecraft, astronauts step into a silent, three-dimensional ocean of blackness, a void so profound and vast it defies terrestrial description. Many who have experienced it struggle for words, often comparing the sensation to swimming, not in water, but in an endless, silent sea of stars. Every push against a handrail sends them on a slow, graceful trajectory. Every movement is a deliberate stroke through the vacuum. Below them, the Earth hangs like a luminous blue and white jewel, a breathtaking spectacle of swirling clouds, vibrant continents, and deep azure oceans, all set against the infinite black. It is in these moments, with nothing but a thin, gold-tinted visor separating them from the cosmos, that astronauts often report a profound cognitive shift, a feeling of overwhelming awe and connection to the whole of humanity known as the overview effect. National borders vanish, and the conflicts that define life on the surface seem insignificant, replaced by a powerful understanding of the planet as a single, fragile, and shared home. This transcendent experience, however, is grounded in a physics that is brutally unforgiving. On Earth, a dropped tool clatters to the floor. In orbit, a dropped wrench or a slipped bolt drifts away silently and endlessly, becoming a new man-made satellite on a permanent, high-speed journey around the planet. To prevent this, every single piece of equipment used during a spacewalk, from a power drill to the smallest fastener, is meticulously tethered to the astronaut's suit or the station structure. This is not merely a matter of preventing the loss of expensive tools. It is an act of critical strategic importance. Each lost object becomes another piece of orbital debris, a hypervelocity projectile added to the increasingly crowded belt of space junk that threatens every satellite and spacecraft in low Earth orbit. A lost glove does not just float away. It becomes a potential weapon capable of shattering a solar panel or disabling a multi-billion-dollar communications satellite. The infamous 2008 incident, where astronaut Heide Marie Stephanician Piper accidentally lost an entire tool bag during a spacewalk, was a dramatic illustration of this reality. The bag, valued at over $100,000, became an officially tracked satellite, orbiting the Earth for months before it finally, and fortunately, burned up in the atmosphere. The simple, disciplined act of managing one's tethers is therefore an act of responsible stewardship in a fragile domain, where a single moment of carelessness can have lasting and dangerous consequences for all spacefaring nations. The challenges are not merely external. The human body and mind, products of a world with a clear up and down, must constantly fight against their own hardwired instincts. Astronauts must often perform complex repairs while oriented completely upside down relative to the Earth below, a position that can trigger a profound sense of disorientation and vertigo even in seasoned veterans. Internally, the astronaut's own body becomes a potential hazard. The intense physical exertion of an EVA produces sweat, but in microgravity, that sweat does not drip away. It beads up, clings to the skin, and can form floating globules of salty water inside the helmet. A single droplet drifting into an astronaut's eye can be temporarily blinding, while moisture condensing on electronic equipment can cause a potentially catastrophic short circuit. The suit's liquid cooling garment is the primary defense, but managing this internal environment is a constant concern. The overall mood between human and machine plays out against a backdrop of relentless, invisible violence. The vacuum of space is not empty. It is filled with a constant shower of micrometeoroids, tiny particles of rock and metal traveling at tens of thousands of miles per hour. Even a particle the size of a grain of sand carries the kinetic energy of a rifle bullet, capable of piercing the outer layers of a spacesuit. At the same time, astronauts are subjected to the most extreme temperature fluctuations imaginable. In direct sunlight, with no atmosphere to scatter the energy, the surface of their suit can heat up to over 250 degrees Fahrenheit. Moments later, as they pass into the Earth's shadow, the temperature can plunge to more than 250 degrees below zero. They are walking a razor's edge between being scorched and being flash frozen, their survival entirely dependent on the suit's thermal regulation systems. All of this culminates in a state of profound physical exhaustion. A spacewalk may look like a graceful, slow-motion ballet from the outside, but for the person inside the stiff, pressurized suit, it is an 8-hour marathon of grueling physical labor. By the end of an EVA, astronauts are often completely drained, dehydrated, and utterly spent. The fatigue is immense, but it is a price they willingly pay for the memory of having swum in the blackest ocean, with the whole of the world drifting silently beneath them. After the adrenaline-fueled, high-stakes drama of a spacewalk, an astronaut returns to a different kind of challenge: the long, slow, and psychologically grinding siege of confinement. The International Space Station, while the largest human-made structure ever put into orbit, is by terrestrial standards a cramped and restrictive environment. For 6 months or more, a crew of up to 7 individuals must live and work within a pressurized volume roughly equivalent to that of a 6-bedroom house, but with much of that space consumed by equipment and laboratories. Privacy is a scarce commodity, limited to a personal sleep station often no larger than a phone booth. There are no walks in the park, no fresh breezes, no opportunities to simply be alone. This prolonged isolation, in close quarters with a small group of the same people, is a psychological crucible. Space agencies like NASA draw on decades of data from analogous environments, nuclear submarine patrols, Antarctic winter-over missions, to understand and mitigate the risks. Interpersonal conflicts, motivational slumps, and the sheer mental fatigue of monotony are not just inconveniences, they are significant threats to mission success. On a future multi-year mission to Mars, where there is no possibility of an early return, the psychological resilience and cohesion of the crew will be as critical to survival as their life support systems. The sensory environment of the station further amplifies this challenge. The human body is denied its most basic, comforting rituals. A hot shower, with its cascading water and enveloping steam, is a physical impossibility in a world where water floats in cohesive blobs. Instead, hygiene is a meticulous and utilitarian task, performed with rinseless soap, no-rinse shampoo, and damp towels. It is functional, but it lacks the profound psychological release and cleansing that a shower provides on Earth. The station also has its own unique and inescapable smell. New arrivals often describe it as a distinct sterile odor, a combination of metallic machinery, antiseptic wipes, and the faint ozonic scent of electronics. This is the smell of recycled air and life in a can. A rare and notable exception is the smell that clings to a spacesuit after it returns from the vacuum of a spacewalk. A sharp, almost sweet odor of burnt metal, thought to be the result of atomic oxygen reacting with the suit's fabric. For the crew, this novel scent is a brief, almost alien perfume, a temporary break in the otherwise unchanging olfactory landscape of their world. The soundscape is equally monotonous. The profound silence of space is locked outside the station's walls. Inside is the omnipresent, low-frequency hum of the machinery that keeps them alive. The whirring of air circulation fans, the thrum of pumps, and the clicks of relays form a constant mechanical chorus, an unchanging soundtrack that is the polar opposite of the rich, varied, and chaotic symphony of sounds on Earth. Astronauts often speak with a deep sense of longing for the simple, natural noises of home, the unpredictable rhythm of rainfall, the rustle of wind through trees, the distant sound of birds. This absence of natural sound is a subtle but potent form of sensory deprivation, contributing to the feeling of being utterly disconnected from the living world. The hum of the station is the sound of survival, but it is also the sound of isolation. To combat this psychological siege, astronauts have a powerful and unique form of therapy, gazing out the window at the Earth below. From the vantage point of the station's cupola, a 7-windowed observation module designed specifically for this purpose, they can watch their home planet glide by in silent, breathtaking majesty. They see continents drift past, witness the raw power of hurricanes swirling over oceans, and watch as the Terminator line sweeps across the globe, bringing nightfall and revealing the glittering spiderweb patterns of city lights. This practice of earth-gazing is more than a pleasant pastime. It is a vital tool for maintaining mental health. It provides perspective, eases feelings of loneliness, and powerfully reconnects the crew to their ultimate purpose and the home they have left behind. The cupola itself was not an engineering afterthought. It was a deliberate, multi-million-dollar investment in the psychological well-being of the crew, a strategic recognition that an astronaut's state of mind is a mission-critical resource. In this confined world, the human spirit finds other ways to endure and create meaning. Astronauts are not just operators of a machine, they are inhabitants of a new world, and they bring their culture with them. Guitars are brought into orbit, their melodies offering an emotional release in quiet moments. Poetry is written, art is sketched, and stunning photography captures views that will inspire millions back on Earth. These creative acts are not hobbies. They are essential mechanisms for staying human in a fundamentally inhuman environment. Rituals, too, become profoundly important. Holidays are celebrated with floating, makeshift decorations and shared meals of specially requested foods. These traditions serving to reimpose a familiar human rhythm on the surreal 16 sunrise-a-day cycle of orbit. Over the course of a mission, each international crew develops its own unique microculture, complete with shared jokes, new traditions, and blended languages, transforming a collection of highly trained professionals into a cohesive, family-like unit. It is this human software, the art, the rituals, the culture, that enables them to survive the long silent months, proving that even 250 miles above the Earth, humanity's instinct to create, connect, and find joy endures. The return from orbit is not a gentle homecoming. It is a violent collision with a forgotten world. After months of adaptation to the serene physics of weightlessness, the reintroduction of gravity is a brutal shock to the system. The moment the capsule lands and the engines fall silent, the mission of survival enters a new and critical phase. For the returning astronaut, gravity feels like a crushing, oppressive force. Their own head, suddenly weighing 10 pounds again, feels too heavy to lift. Every limb is like lead, and the simple act of standing upright is a monumental challenge. The body, having become highly efficient in a world without gravity, has lost its conditioning to fight it. The cardiovascular system, in particular, is slow to react. When an astronaut stands, the blood that had been pooled in their upper body is suddenly pulled down into their legs. On Earth, a healthy body would instantly constrict blood vessels to push blood back to the brain. But the deconditioned spacefarer's body responds too slowly. This orthostatic intolerance causes a sudden drop in blood pressure, leading to dizziness, vertigo, and in many cases, causing the astronaut to faint. Medical teams are on immediate standby for this moment of extreme vulnerability, ready to assist the crew as they emerge from their capsule. The televised images of smiling, waving astronauts are often misleading. Just out of frame, they are being heavily supported, their bodies struggling to remember the most basic principles of existence in a 1G environment. Their balance system, with the inner ear once again flooded with gravitational signals, is in a state of utter confusion. Their first attempts to walk are a shocking sight. These elite individuals, who performed graceful, balletic movements in 0G, now stagger with the clumsy, uncertain steps of a toddler learning to walk for the first time. This is the visible evidence of a profound neuromuscular deconditioning. The brain must painstakingly relearn how to interpret the signals for balance while commanding muscles that have been significantly weakened. The formal rehabilitation process begins almost immediately and is as intense as any training they underwent before their mission. Guided by a team of doctors and physical therapists, they embark on a weeks or months-long program to rebuild the bone density and muscle mass that the vacuum of space stripped from them. In this, the astronaut's body becomes a unique laboratory, providing invaluable data for developing recovery protocols for athletes and patients on Earth. Beyond the physical struggle, the return to Earth is a sensory onslaught. The sterile, recycled, and monotonous environment of the station is suddenly replaced by the overwhelming richness of a living planet. The first breath of fresh air after the capsule hatch is opened is often a shocking, emotionally charged event. Earth smells, the scent of damp soil, of grass after a rain, of vegetation on the breeze, rush in with an astonishing, forgotten intensity. For a sensory system that has been dulled and deprived for months, this flood of complex, organic information can be overpowering, frequently bringing astronauts to tears. This is not merely a sentimental reaction, it is a profound neurological event. The sense of smell is the most ancient of the senses, hardwired directly into the brain's centers for emotion and memory. The sudden reawakening of this sense triggers a powerful, involuntary cascade of memories and feelings, reconnecting the astronaut to their home world in the most primal way imaginable. Paradoxically, even as they rejoice in their return, many astronauts soon begin to experience a strange and unexpected sense of loss. They feel a homesickness, not for the Earth they stand on, but for the silent, star-filled void they left behind. The overview effect. The profound freedom of floating, the effortless three-dimensional movement that had become their new normal. They miss the quiet camaraderie of their small, isolated crew. And most of all, they miss the view. The breathtaking, life-altering sight of their planet hanging in the darkness. Their subconscious mind clings to the experience, replaying it in their dreams, where they once again find themselves drifting weightlessly through rooms and over landscapes. This longing reveals the depth of their transformation. They have been physically and psychologically rewired for a different existence, and part of their identity will forever remain in orbit. The most profound and enduring transformation, however, is one of perception. It is a cognitive shift that almost every astronaut reports, a change that begins the moment they first see the Earth from space. The overview effect. From a distance of 250 miles, the planet is revealed not as a map of competing nations, but as a single, vibrant, and incredibly fragile sphere, alive and whole, set against the vast, sterile blackness of the cosmos. All the divisions that define human conflict, borders, politics, religions, are invisible, revealed as the arbitrary human constructs they are. This perspective is often described as a quasi-spiritual experience, one that instills a deep sense of connection to all of humanity and a powerful protective feeling towards the planet itself. Many astronauts return from their missions as changed people, carrying with them a new global consciousness. They become advocates for environmental stewardship and international cooperation, their testimony carrying the unique authority of those who have seen the world from the outside. In an age of division, the overview effect may be the single most valuable treasure brought back from the final frontier, a crucial, transformative perspective on our shared and fragile existence. The overall mood of human spaceflight, with its immense complexity and profound transformations, rests on the shoulders of a few pioneering individuals who first dared to breach the heavens. Their journeys were not undertaken in a spirit of pure exploration. They were frontline operations in the Cold War, each launch a calculated move on a global chessboard designed to demonstrate the technological and ideological supremacy of a superpower. The opening salvo in this contest was fired on April 12, 1961, when Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin was sealed into his Vostok 1 capsule and became the first human being to enter space and orbit the Earth. His 108-minute flight was a stunning technological achievement and a masterful stroke of propaganda. For a world locked in a tense ideological struggle, the sight of the smiling, charismatic young pilot broadcast from Moscow was a clear declaration that the Soviet Union had seized the ultimate high ground. Gagarin's simple, poetic words from orbit, "I see Earth, it is so beautiful," resonated across the globe. But in the halls of power in Washington, D.C., his flight was a deafening alarm bell. It was a Sputnik moment magnified, a direct challenge that spurred the United States to commit to the audacious, almost unimaginable goal of landing a man on the moon. The Soviets pressed their advantage, delivering another powerful political statement just 2 years later. On June 16, 1963, Valentina Tereshkova, a 26-year-old former textile factory worker and amateur skydiver, became the first woman to fly in space. Her mission aboard Vostok 6 was a solo flight that lasted almost 3 days, logging more time in orbit than all American astronauts combined up to that point. With the call sign Seagull, her flight was promoted by the Kremlin as definitive proof of the equality of the sexes under the communist system, a stark contrast to the exclusively male military test pilot demographic of America's Mercury astronauts. While her personal courage was undeniable, the mission was as much a political calculation as a scientific one. The fact that another woman would not fly in space for nearly 2 decades suggests it was more a symbolic gesture than the beginning of true gender integration. Nonetheless, Tereshkova secured her place in history, a trailblazer who proved that the final frontier was not the exclusive domain of men. The American response, when it finally came, was a singular event that stands as one of the defining moments of the 20th century. On July 20, 1969, after nearly a decade of monumental effort that consumed more than 4% of the U.S. federal budget and harnessed the labor of 400,000 people, the Apollo 11 lunar module Eagle touched down on the Moon's Sea of Tranquility. The world watched in rapt attention as Commander Neil Armstrong descended the ladder and spoke his immortal words. "That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind." That single footprint in the lunar dust was the symbolic checkmate in the first great space race. It was an unparalleled demonstration of American industrial might, technological prowess, and national will, a geopolitical statement of such magnitude that it has echoed through history ever since. Yet, amidst these titanic struggles between nations, the astronauts themselves found ways to express their own individuality, humor, and humanity. The Apollo 14 mission in 1971, Alan Shepard, the first American in space, revealed he had smuggled the head of a 6-iron golf club and 2 golf balls aboard the lunar module. In front of a bewildered television audience, he affixed the club head to a sample collection tool and took 2 swings on the lunar surface. The second ball, struck cleanly in the low lunar gravity, sailed for miles and miles and miles, as Shepard playfully quipped. Years earlier, during the 1965 Gemini 3 mission, astronaut John Young smuggled a corned beef sandwich in his spacesuit. Mid-flight, he offered it to his commander Gus Grissom, a humorous, if dangerous, breach of protocol as floating crumbs threatened the capsule's electronics. These small acts of rebellion, in a program defined by military precision and life-or-death stakes, are more than amusing anecdotes. They are crucial reminders of the irrepressible human spirit, the need for playfulness and a simple taste of home, even in the most alien of environments. This desire to imbue the sterile, technical process of exploration with personal meaning took other, more poignant forms. After the Apollo 11 landing, as the world celebrated a global achievement, Buzz Aldrin took a moment for a private act of faith, performing communion with a small kit prepared by his church, consuming bread and wine on the lunar surface. On Apollo 16, astronaut Charles Duke left behind a laminated photograph of his family, a deeply personal marker left to lie in the lunar dust for eternity. These gestures transformed the Moon from a mere geopolitical prize into a place of human spirituality, love, and memory. They reveal the inner lives of the explorers as they grappled with the enormity of their journey, seeking to leave behind not just flags and footprints, but testaments to the enduring power of their own humanity. The heroic age of short Apollo-style sprints to the Moon gave way to a new, more arduous challenge: long-duration habitation in low Earth orbit. The focus shifted from planting flags to the grueling, methodical work of learning to live and work in space for months and even years on end. The absolute pinnacle of this human endurance was achieved not by NASA, but by the Russian space program. Aboard the Mir space station, cosmonaut physician Dr. Valery Polyakov completed a staggering 437-day continuous mission from January 1994 to March 1995. This was not a record-setting stunt. It was a critical and deliberate scientific experiment designed to gather the long-term medical and psychological data essential for planning a future human mission to Mars. For over 14 months, Polyakov subjected his body to the ravages of microgravity, diligently following his exercise and research protocols. Upon his return to Earth, he famously insisted on walking, with assistance, from the landing capsule, a powerful symbolic act to prove that the human will, supported by a rigorous scientific regimen, could overcome the debilitating effects of such a prolonged stay in space. His mission remains a cornerstone of space medicine, a vital data set that continues to inform the strategies for keeping future interplanetary explorers healthy and functional. As humanity's foothold in orbit became permanent, the nature of the astronauts' role began to evolve. They were no longer distant, inaccessible heroes, glimpsed only through grainy television broadcasts. The advent of the internet and social media transformed them into direct, charismatic communicators, capable of sharing their extraordinary experience with billions of people in real time. Today's astronauts tweet stunning photographs of Earth, post selfies while floating in the cupola, and record videos explaining the intricacies of their scientific work. This direct line of communication has been instrumental in humanizing the space program for a new generation, building a global base of public support that is critical for securing the political will and funding necessary for more ambitious goals. No single event captured the power of this new connection more than Canadian astronaut Chris Hadfield's 2013 performance of David Bowie's Space Oddity aboard the ISS. The video, showing Hadfield floating with his guitar as the Earth glided past the window, became a global viral sensation. It was a masterful fusion of art, science, and public outreach, arguably one of the most effective public relations initiatives in the history of spaceflight, transforming a distant outpost of science into a shared cultural moment. This new era is defined not just by communication, but by the foundational work of building a sustainable, self-sufficient human presence off-world. On the ISS, astronauts are no longer just consumers of resources shipped from Earth. They are becoming farmers and manufacturers. Using advanced hydroponic systems and LED lighting, they have successfully cultivated crops, including lettuce, zinnias, and even chili peppers. These experiments are vital rehearsals for Mars missions, where the ability to grow fresh food will be a non-negotiable requirement for survival. Beyond the critical nutritional and psychological benefits of eating freshly grown food, this work represents the first baby steps in the field of off-world agriculture. Similarly, the installation of 3D printers on the station has been a revolutionary leap. In 2014, when astronauts printed a socket wrench from a digital file emailed from Mission Control, it marked a paradigm shift. This demonstrated a move away from a fragile, multi-million-mile-long supply chain towards in-situ manufacturing. The ability to print tools, replacement parts, or medical devices on demand is a cornerstone technology for future deep space exploration and the establishment of permanent lunar or Martian bases. The ISS is, at its core, a world-class national laboratory, and its unique microgravity environment allows for research that is impossible to conduct on Earth. Scientists study the behavior of fire, which in space forms strange spherical flames, revealing new insights into combustion that could lead to more efficient engines on Earth. They study fluid dynamics, protein crystallization for new drug development, and the formation of new metal alloys. In recent years, this research has entered the biological frontier with the deployment of DNA sequencing machines. For the first time, astronauts can analyze microbial life on the station and monitor changes in their own genetic expression in real time. This is a critical capability for diagnosing illnesses and understanding the deep cellular impact of the space environment. This research platform is also becoming increasingly commercialized. Private companies can now pay for their experiments to be run on the station, turning low Earth orbit into a hub for industrial research and development. Even the celebrated ISS Espresso, which allowed astronauts to brew fresh espresso, was a commercial partnership, a high-profile demonstration of a company's ability to engineer a complex fluid system that could function in zero-G, creating immense brand value back on Earth. Each of these developments, from farming and manufacturing to advanced science, is a building block for a true off-world economy, a future where humanity is not just visiting space, but living and working there. Every experiment conducted, every hour of exercise performed, and every system tested aboard the International Space Station is a small step towards a much larger, more audacious goal: a human mission to Mars. The permanent outpost in low Earth orbit is not an end in itself. It is a critical stepping stone, a dress rehearsal in our own cosmic backyard for the immense challenges of interplanetary travel. The road to the Red Planet is the ultimate frontier, a multi-decade endeavor that will test the absolute limits of human technology, physiology, and psychology. And today, this endeavor is not a matter of peaceful, unified exploration. It is the arena for a new great power competition, a multipolar space race where the stakes are nothing less than the strategic and economic dominance of the 21st century. The United States, through its Artemis program, is leading a coalition of international partners, while a formidable Chinese-Russian alliance is pursuing its own ambitious agenda for lunar and Martian exploration. The nation that successfully establishes a sustained human presence on Mars will not only reap the rewards of scientific prestige, but will also be positioned to lead in the development of off-world resources and technologies, fundamentally altering the balance of power back on Earth. The challenges of a Mars mission are an order of magnitude greater than anything humanity has ever attempted. The journey alone will take a minimum of 6 to 9 months each way, followed by a surface stay of over a year, waiting for the planets to realign for the return trip. During this 3-year voyage, the crew will be utterly on their own. The communications delay, which can be up to 22 minutes each way, makes real-time conversation with Earth impossible. The overall mood is remarkably forcing the crew, almost completely autonomous, forced to solve any and all life-threatening emergencies with only the resources and expertise they carry with them. The psychological strain will be unprecedented. For months, Earth will shrink behind them until it becomes just another bright star in the sky, a visible disconnection that psychologists are still struggling to fully comprehend and model. For this reason, extensive research on the ISS is dedicated to studying group dynamics in extreme isolation, seeking to understand how to select a crew that can maintain cohesion and function under pressures no human has ever faced. To survive this journey, a Mars-bound crew must live in a perfectly closed-loop ecosystem. On the ISS, they are testing the next generation of life support systems that can recycle nearly 100% of the water from urine and humidity. They are refining methods for growing their own food and developing the 3D printing technologies that will allow them to manufacture their own tools and spare parts. And they are grappling with the single greatest threat of deep space travel: radiation. Far from the protective shield of Earth's magnetic field, the crew will be constantly bombarded by galactic cosmic rays, which pose a severe long-term risk of cancer and neurological damage. Solving the problem of how to effectively shield a spacecraft and habitat for years at a time is a monumental engineering challenge that remains one of the primary obstacles to a human mission. Every piece of the puzzle, from the technical and medical to the psychological, is being painstakingly assembled in orbit today, as the data gathered from each mission adds another brick to the long road that leads to Mars. As these national ambitions play out, the entire landscape of spaceflight is being radically transformed by a powerful new force: private commercial enterprise. The first half-century of the space age, access to orbit was the exclusive domain of a handful of government superpowers. Today, a vibrant commercial space industry, led by disruptive innovators like SpaceX and Blue Origin, is revolutionizing the final frontier. The advent of reusable rocket technology has slashed the cost of launching mass into orbit, breaking the government monopoly and opening the door to a new economic ecosystem. NASA is no longer the sole operator. It is now often a customer, buying seats for its astronauts on commercial spacecraft and paying for cargo to be delivered to its own space station. This public-private partnership is a core strategic asset, allowing the government agency to focus its vast resources on the pioneering deep space exploration of the Artemis and Mars programs, while the commercial sector innovates and industrializes the well-traveled territory of low Earth orbit. The most visible and perhaps most symbolic manifestation of this new era is the dawn of space tourism. Private citizens, albeit for now only the ultra-wealthy, are beginning to fly alongside career astronauts, purchasing tickets for a 10-minute suborbital flight or even a multi-day stay on the ISS. Some see this as a frivolous indulgence, but its implications are profound. It marks the beginning of space as a destination, not just for scientific discovery, but for human experience. The investment and innovation driven by the nascent tourism market are fueling the development of new vehicles and technologies that will further drive down costs for everyone. While the dream of fully democratizing space remains distant, this commercial revolution is undeniably accelerating humanity's expansion into the cosmos. The overall mood of governance, resource rights, and security. But one thing is clear. The future of humanity in space will be a complex interplay between the strategic ambitions of nations and the relentless, disruptive engine of private enterprise. And so, after a journey through the crucibles of training, the violence of launch, and the surreal physics of orbit, we drift back down to the solid ground of Earth. We return with a new, unsparing understanding of what it takes to send a human being into the final frontier. The story of the astronaut is not one of graceful, effortless exploration. It is a story of conflict waged on multiple fronts simultaneously. It is the story of a geopolitical conflict where national ambition and strategic rivalry fuel the immense investments required to conquer the high ground of space. It is the story of a technological conflict, a relentless battle of engineering against the unforgiving laws of physics, where a single flawed O-ring or a microscopic tear in a suit can lead to catastrophe. And most profoundly, it is the story of a biological conflict, a war waged by the individual astronaut against the decay of their own body and the psychological siege of isolation in an environment for which they were never made. We have witnessed the forging of these unique individuals. We have seen them descend into colossal pools of water to rehearse for the void, and endure crushing G-forces in military jets to prepare for the violence of ascent. We have seen them master the language of a geopolitical rival, not as a courtesy, but as a requirement for survival. We have stood with them into orbit, where their bodies are stretched and remade, where their bones thin and their hearts change shape, and where their own senses betray them in a world without gravity. We have stood with them inside the multi-million-dollar cocoon of a spacesuit as they swim in the blackest ocean, with the whole of their world suspended beneath them, a moment of transcendent beauty earned through hours of grueling, exhausting labor. We have seen them become farmers, manufacturers, and scientists, laying the foundational bricks for a future off-world economy. And we have returned with them, witnessing the brutal shock of their reunion with gravity and the profound, life-altering shift in perspective they carry with them forever. To ask why we do this is to ask the most fundamental question of our time. The answers are as complex and multifaceted as the endeavor itself. We go for reasons of national security and economic advantage. The silent ballet of satellites that govern our communications, our finances, and our military intelligence must be maintained, upgraded, and defended. The nation that leads in space gains a decisive edge on Earth. We go because a new space race is underway, a contest not just between two superpowers, but among a new caste of nations and ambitious private corporations, all vying for the immense resources and strategic territory of the Moon, Mars, and beyond. We go because it drives innovation, pushing the boundaries of material science, medicine, and computing in ways that yield incalculable benefits for all of humanity back home. But beneath the hard calculus of geopolitics and economics lies a deeper, more enduring truth. We send these few men and women into the void as proxies for us all. They are the pinnacle of a pyramid of human effort, but they are also profoundly, vulnerably human. They carry their humor, their rituals, their personal mementos, and their capacity for awe into the sterile, mechanical world of a space station. In their struggle, we see our own. Their bodies, so perfectly adapted for Earth, reveal our own biological fragility when placed in an alien environment. Their minds, grappling with isolation, demonstrate our own deep need for connection and community. And their eyes, gazing down upon a borderless, fragile planet, offer us a perspective we desperately need. They explore what it means to be human by leaving humanity behind. They show us that the body is fragile, but the spirit, the insatiable, curious, and resilient spirit of discovery, is strong enough to carry us to new worlds. The journey of the astronaut is a mirror, reflecting both the awesome power of our ambition and the profound responsibility that comes with it. As we stand at the dawn of a new, more accessible age of spaceflight, the question is no longer if we will continue to push outward, but what version of humanity we will carry with us as we go.